I'm going to try and read through this as quickly and as clearly as possible. So this is the long version of the Solemn League and Covenant of the People of the Commonwealth of Australia. It is a declaration of the people's supremacy and of our intent of lawful reclamation. We are resolved by peaceful and lawful means to reclaim our rights, our stolen national wealth and the integrity of our Constitution, to restore just and accountable governance under the Commonwealth. We stand united in our conviction that the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia, as originally constituted, has been supplanted by a corporate entity registered as Australian Government, US, SEC file, Washington, DC, lacking lawful authority to govern under the Constitution, Act 1901 Commonwealth. Sitting members and senators have failed to swear an oath or affirmation as prescribed by Section 42 of the Constitution, invalidating their office and authority and rendering all legislation passed null and void ab initio. Corporations cannot govern, make or enforce law, and any governance by corporate entities constitutes fraudulent impersonation of lawful government and treason. So, number one, the purpose and authority of this covenant. We act under the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution, Act 1901, the rule of law, the principles enshrined in natural law and precedents set in High Court case law, and also in the spirit of the United States Supreme Court rulings affirming constitutional supremacy. We reject any claim to authority by the corporate entity Australian Government, registered in Washington, masquerading as the legitimate Parliament, and reaffirm our allegiance to the true Commonwealth as constituted under the Commonwealth of Australia, Constitution Act 1901 UK, the supreme law to which we are bound pursuant to Clause 5. Then I've got the statement of grievances and charges of treason. We outline the following grievous acts of betrayal, all contrary to constitutional guarantees, natural rights and the public interest. Treason and allegiance to foreign powers. We charge that our Parliament, prior to and under the leadership of Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong, has demonstrated allegiance to the CCP and other foreign powers. 1/3 of Australia now owned by China, and our security is compromised by facilitating their requirement of our ports. Enacted legislation based on WHO recommendations, evidences obedience, adherence and allegiance to a foreign power, a direct violation under Section 44(1) and 2 of our Constitution that recognises it as being attainted of treason. Grounds for disqualification, it is betrayal of the people. Facilitating the invasion of Australia via mass immigration that burdens Australians and endangers public safety. Prioritised foreign interests, sending billions to foreign wars, including conflicts that constitute genocide, while Australians are neglected and suffering in poverty. Billions in public funds are directed towards these foreign wars, including the Ukraine and Israel. Without any consent of the people, amounts to misappropriation and complicity in crimes against humanity. The Attorney-General of the Commonwealth is complicit in creating laws to jail Australians for offending those of Jewish faith, evidences where his loyalty lies, and that is not with Australians. He's also derelict in his duty to uphold High Court case law in Faruqi versus Hanson. His duty was to invalidate Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, not uphold it. So then I've got immigration as invasion and domestic collapse. Over 1 million immigrants annually, many unvetted, are being housed and funded, while 1 in 6 Australians live in poverty and homelessness becomes widespread. Loss of housing with Australians displaced or homeless. Displacement of rural communities, overburdening of welfare, loss of Australian culture, loss of employment opportunities and access to our universities that are now accommodating foreign students, approximately 80% of over Australians. Our education system has become a business. Discrimination and inequality, privileges and assistance not available to everyday Australians. An unsustainable mass immigration program has facilitated, and the correlation between this influx and the explosion in violent crimes such as rape and murder and home invasions, carjackings and child assaults is a direct result of government policy, which is endangering every Australian. Then we've got the weaponisation of health and coerced medical experimentation. The coercive rollout of experimental mRNA gene therapy vaccines under threat of job loss breached Section 109 of the Constitution, state laws conflicting with protections under the Fair Work Act, Section 5123, prohibition against civil conscription in medical services amounting to assault and grievous bodily harm. Public funds were used to purchase vaccines, making the Commonwealth complicit in state-level civil conscription, which is expressly prohibited under Section 5123A by coercion under threat of livelihood. And we also had the breach of the doctor-patient relationship, which is a contract in law. Then we've got the economic treason and asset theft. The resources, minerals and water of Australia have been sold to foreign corporations, often tax exempt, while Australians struggle. Neglected and discriminated against, and natural wealth, enough to make every citizen prosperous, has been siphoned offshore. Australia is now trillions in debt. Superannuation funds, savings and homes are under threat from unauthorised financial surveillance, digital ID and CBDC frameworks. A forensic audit is to be conducted on every transaction, contract and agreement entered into with foreign corporations and those facilitating such arrangements. Psychological warfare, mental, educational and cultural subversion. False narratives including COVID-19, fear propaganda, climate hysteria and gender ideology have been used to instill fear and divide families. The promotion of gender ideology has led to gender confusion among youth, high suicide rates up to 70% in trans-identifying individuals in their 20s and 30s, encouragement of genital mutilation without long-term safety or efficacy, false narratives such as COVID-19 fear campaigns and CO2 is a pollutant, net zero goals have been used to control, coerce and manipulate public opinion about absent any factual evidence which would expose to the contrary. Technologies such as HARP, directed energy weapons, DEWs, chemtrails and geoengineering are employed without consent, manipulating weather and the environment under the guise of climate response. Our food and water are poisoned by fluoride, GMOs and pharmaceutical residues, while traditional organic and natural medicines are suppressed. Our environment, our wilderness, flora and fauna are threatened and desecrated under the guise of green renewable energy. Everything is to the contrary, resulting in environmental hazards and disasters. Then we've got the destruction of law, rights and farmers. Australians have been denied the right to self-defence and arms ownership, while criminals walk free. Our farmers, the backbone of our nation, are crippled by rising fuel, carbon taxes and bureaucratic sabotage. Monopolies, Coles and Woolworths inflate prices under the protection of government policies while families starve and freedoms disintegrate through late-night legislation without public oversight. All legislation, regulations used to acquire farmers' lands and cause hardship, including the foreclosure of farmers' loans by banks, are to undergo forensic investigation. Corporate usurpation and violation of oath. Members of Parliament have failed to swear the prescribed oath under Section 42, thereby holding oath unlawfully. The corporations cannot legislate, yet the current Australian government operates as a private corporate entity, thereby nullifying its acts, statutes and enforcement of power. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York holds Australia's reserve funds, privatising the wealth of our nation. Then I've got the environmental destruction and deception. I've probably doubled up with some of this here. I've got to go over and fine-tune it, but you get the gist. The shutdown of reliable coal-fired power stations has caused energy instability. Trillions are spent on 5G installations, military-grade technology with no public safety data. Wind turbines and solar panels known to cause environmental degradation, animal deformities, destruction of farmland, all sourced from China. Graphene and heavy metal pollutant is a silent health crisis. Dew and HARP, ionospheric manipulation and geoengineering are used in climate control operations that cause rather than solve disasters. Their residue sits as a dirty pollution, blocking the sun and leaves a highly flammable residue that has accelerated bush fires. It poisons our air, our land and our water. And then I've got the fluoridation and toxins added to our water supplies continues without consent despite known harms. Then I've got the destruction of nature, farming and wildlife. We reject the foreign sale of Australian land, water and minerals. the killing of brumbies and deer, while wild pigs' known ecological threats are ignored, the neglect of invasive species such as ivy choking our forests. Farmers face continual persecution, burdened with unreasonable, arbitrary and excessive taxation forced off their land, harassment and trespass of government bodies and global monopolies that dictate food and water supply. Their properties are often sold to foreign corporations. Then we've got the millions of bees that are poisoned under fraudulent narratives. Our bees are crucial to pollination and to agricultural industries. So, and all these government authorities simply came onto the properties and trespassed and committed the atrocities of killing all our bees. Some of our local rural areas are now absent any bees and the farmers are self-pollinating. It's absolutely disgraceful. So weather manipulation, geoengineering pursuant to the Rainmaking Act of 1947 was for the purpose of drought relief and bushfire control, but instead has been used to the contrary as a weapon, causing catastrophic losses to farmers by creating droughts and flood, killing sheep and cattle in their millions and destroying crops. Under the fraudulent narrative of bird flu, the government has slaughtered millions of chickens. All of these aforementioned assaults have resulted in food shortages and price increases. We consider this as a blatant attack on the people. Our national food resources, our sustainability is being sabotaged by design, and innocent creatures are being killed for no other reason than false flag, fear-mongering inventions of the government. And people are to note, bird flu is species specific. We cannot catch bird flu. Our covenants, demands and actions. We, the people of the Commonwealth, demand and do solemnly and irrevocably covenant the following. We do not recognise the Australian Government Corporation. It is an illegitimate foreign entity acting under false pretence of lawful authority. We demand the immediate disqualification, lawful indictment of all senators, MPs, judges and civil servants complicit and who have failed to swear the constitutional oath or who have acted under foreign allegiance to face public trial. We demand the restoration of constitutional governance, including an inquiry into all legislation passed since the formation of the corporate government, the return of Australian assets, land, water and wealth to the public trust, the reassertion of our natural rights, including the right to bear arms, free speech, free movement and bodily autonomy. We demand the abolition of unlawful taxes, digital surveillance and central bank digital currency proposals. We declare the right to protect ourselves, our families and our communities against criminal and government threats, all by peaceful and lawful means. Unconstitutional governance, foreign allegiance, tyranny and oppression is what has been occurring behind closed doors and is now blatantly evidence. We also are demanding a forensic inquiry into the atrocities such as the Port Arthur massacre, the Train Brothers scandal, all the child sex abuse and trafficking, the alleged 28 high-profile pedophiles in the highest ranks of governments addressed by Bill Heffernan, police cover-ups such as the red shirts, all crimes including but not limited to the aforementioned, and every closed file that is sealed or classified to conceal the truth under the guise of national security, especially those under cabinet or executive privilege, to be released, opened and scrutinised. Focusing on Section 33 of the National Archives Act 1983, governing the public release of Commonwealth records and the files contained pursuant to this Act, labelled or referred to as ongoing risks or sensitivities, are potentially concealing crimes against the Commonwealth and the people. We will not tolerate the protection of criminals concealing their actions behind legislative tools and demand immediate release and investigation. All files associated with high-profile or controversial cases, internal government communications, political or diplomatic implications, court transcripts, forensic reports and investigative findings will be subject to thorough investigation, prioritising the security and integrity of our Commonwealth. All past and present are to be tried in their personal capacity, to be made accountable for their actions and decisions. The highest of penalties to apply in accordance with the law for those in fiduciary roles and positions of trust. We demand the restoration of the Commonwealth Constitution in its original intent and form. including abolition of corporate governance, return of national wealth and natural resources to the people. Constitutional protection and rights to free speech, movement and medical choice are guarantees. They cannot be revoked. Moratorium on foreign ownership of land, water, minerals and infrastructure. An independent people's tribunal to investigate treason, medical experimentation, ecological sabotage, recognition of the right to self-govern and to lawfully and peacefully defend ourselves and our families. Oh, once again, I've got the right to bear arms. An economic plan rejecting international usury, resetting our national debt and building an independent economic system that respects land, labour and law subject to the Constitution. So we demand full disclosure and transparency of everything to do with the files and what has gone on within our government. We've got systematic breaches of our Constitution. All land that is referred to as Commonwealth land in the Constitution is not owned by any government, department or minister. No foreign power and no corporate or foreign corporate interest. Government does not own anything. They do not own property, nor our land, our soil, our water, our minerals, resources and industries. It belongs to the Australian people and future generations yet unborn. The government may only hold property in trust for the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth, acting solely as executor of that trust. The people are the sole beneficiaries of such property, and any attempt at land grabs, which is what's going on, and to alienate, sell, lease or register public land under private or foreign interests constitutes a betrayal of trust and is void in law. In this our time of calamity, from the closure of our factories and farms to foreign acquisition of our ports, water rights and critical infrastructure deals designed by the Australian government to siphon our wealth is nothing but theft and fraud, to cripple our nation and weaken our economy, as tax-exempt foreign corporations profit from our nation's stolen wealth. We condemn the sale of vast tracts of Australian land, farmland and strategic assets to overseas interest. Deals by the Australian government infringing our right to prosperity. We oppose the ideology Australia is open for plunder. Geez, I'm nearly done. So we've got violations of Section 109 of the Constitution. State laws were used to override federal protections and force experimental medical treatments, being the COVID-19 mRNA injections. We've got breaches of Section 5123A. The Commonwealth facilitated civil conscription by using funding mechanisms to coerce participation in medical procedures through state acts, a direct violation of the Constitution and High Court precedents. British Medical Association versus the Commonwealth is one. Gag orders and regulatory suppression via APRA and the Australian Medical Board represent malfeasance in fiduciary duty, violating the right of informed consent. The use of military infrastructure, including 5G towers, under pretextual public safety measures with no evidence of safety or efficacy. The disregard of referendums and installation of councils and third tier of government against the wishes of the people. We've got Section 92, the trade within the Commonwealth to be free, on the imposition of uniform duties of custom, trade, commerce and intercourse amongst the states, whether by means blah, 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 shall be absolutely free. Our movement across the nation cannot be hindered even in times of emergency. Greatwick versus Johnson, High Court of Australia set the precedent in that. Then we've got Section 724 and 128 of the Constitution, which is where our implied right to political communication is found. Brown versus Tasmania, High Court is one of the precedent cases on our freedom of speech. Illegitimacy of foreign treaties and agreements. We declare all treaties entered into by the imposters acting as government null and void ab initio, including UN treaties, the Lima Agreement, Uni Joint Treaty, WHO Treaty, and the WHO International Health Regulations, Agenda 2030, Paris Climate Accord, and any treaty authorising foreign military presence or corporate exemptions. We affirm that treaties can only exist between independent nations. Foreign corporations and international organisations have no authority within our territory without direct ratification by the people. Tax exemptions, special agreements and land ownership by foreign corporations are hereby revoked by we the people. These entities are to vacate Australian land and waters immediately, with invoices raised retroactively from the inception of their activities. Restoration of the environmental and resources. Water rights sold by parliamentarians to foreign interests constitute as high treason. All such transactions are invalid. Contracts with Santos and similar corporations have caused environmental disasters and are to be terminated. Audits on every member of parliament, their families, associates and affiliates are to be conducted immediately, covering assets, financial records, properties and dealings. We demand protection of our native species and cessation of the slaughter of brumbies and deer, while failing to address ecologically destructive species like feral pigs. And find people like my son-in-law who's trying to keep them under control. Immediate reforestation and weed eradication programs are to begin, particularly to address noxious species like ivy, which are destroying our native ecosystems. I put that in there because we are going to lose at least 1/10 of our forests in the hills if this ivy isn't brought under control. It is strangling it and killing all our big trees. It's atrocious. Then we've got accountability and trials for crimes against the people. All current and former members of the parliament, senior public servants, judges, police commissioners and medical regulators are to be investigated for treason, democide, malfeasance, sexual crimes, pedophilia, conspiracy and crimes against humanity, tried under the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, common law and natural law, with jury trials composed of 24 citizens acting as a people's grand jury, subject to life imprisonment with hard labour for crimes proven, particularly those involving child exploitation, sexualisation of children and the approval of late-term abortion legislation. All organisations such as AHPRA, the Australian Medical Board, Therapeutic Goods Administration and others are to be declared complicit in mass murder. This list is extensive but not limited. Prohibitions and bans going forward, COVID-19, mRNA injections and any experimental gene therapies are forbidden from this day forth. Surveillance of the people is prohibited, but surveillance of government, judiciary and police will become mandatory. Sexualised content, grooming material and gender ideologies in school is banned immediately with criminal prosecution for any violators. Treaties entered into with corporations or organisations forbidden. Any treaty entered into with an independent nation from this day forth will be by the will of the people or by referendum. The concealment of crimes will not be tolerated. Those involved will be charged as accomplices. Geoengineering, weather manipulation to be utilised for the purpose of drought relief and the good of the Commonwealth. Fraudulent claims of CO2 is harmful, net zero emissions and green renewable agendas to cease immediately. Then I've got a whole paragraph on which is too comprehensive to even read out, which is all the legal authority and supporting case law. So I'm going to go straight to the closing declaration. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, united in our cause, bound by the love of our land and armed with truth and law, are the power and authority of our nation, not unconstitutional political parties nor any corporate boardroom or an unconstitutional usurped parliament that recreated and listed itself as a corporation in Washington, D.C. A parliament that has no legitimate senators or members, as none have sworn their oath prescribed in the Constitution. Hence, the Parliament is an unconstitutional entity masquerading as government that in law has no authority to create laws or administer them. We the people are the Commonwealth. We are the power of our nation and we own its wealth. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, from this day forth, duty bound to our children and future generations, rise united in our cause to restore our nation, to reclaim what has been stolen from us. We will no longer comply with tyranny. We are armed with truth and law, and we do hereby declare we recuse the current corporate parliament and declare it without authority. We seek justice, accountability and reclamation. This is lawful and peaceful resistance against unlawful governance. We sign this covenant in good faith, pledging to uphold peace, truth and freedom from tyranny for future generations. We have drawn a line in the sand. The current regime is to be illegitimate and all foreign and unconstitutional treaties and contracts. Then it's just signed and sealed by the will of the people of the Commonwealth of Australia with the blessing of Almighty God. We affirm the right and duty of this nation to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, self-governing, to produce, manufacture and educate our own independently. This covenant is made in good faith with eternal resolve.
Wow. Holy crap, Jake.